Mr. Secretary, how many employees were there at HHS when you took over?
82,000.
How many do you have today?
62,000.
Okay.
It's about the level it was in 2019, right before COVID.
Is this the first time that an institution in America has ever downsized?
I don't think so. I think private and public institutions have historically.
Microsoft just announced that they were going to reduce their workforce by 6,000 people. You think that'll be the end of Microsoft?
Senator, we wouldn't have reduced anybody.
You think that'll be the end of Microsoft?
I don't think so, Senator.
Meta, I still call them Facebook, just announced they're going to reduce their workforce by 3,000 people. You think that'll be the end of Meta?
I imagine it will not.
Yeah. Think maybe the people at Meta know what they're doing?
I think that they do. They make a lot of money, Senator.
Do you hate NIH?
I love NIH. I grew up with NIH. I visited when I was a boy. I loved science, and those were my favorite afternoons, visiting the labs.
Do you hate medical research?
No, I think we need to lead the world in medical research in this country.
In fact, isn't it true, Mr. Secretary, that you would like to see more money spent on medical research?
Obviously, I'm the secretary of this department. No secretary wants to see his budget cut.
What do you call it when universities pocket millions meant for curing cancer? Senator John Kennedy calls it stealing, and he's not wrong. In a heated exchange with the HHS Secretary, Kennedy laid bare a disturbing pattern of waste, fraud, and misplaced priorities in our government. Dead people getting energy grants. Universities are misusing research funds. And junk food giants are poisoning American kids for profit. If you thought government waste was just a talking point, this exchange will leave you stunned.
Well, one way of doing that, it seems to me, would be to stop some of the stealing. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Let's suppose you give NIH gives a university $100 million to research, for medical research, to research a cure. And that university takes $30 million of it, doesn't spend it on the research. They use it to subsidize the rest of their university. Does that show a commitment to medical research?
No, and I mentioned before the example of Stanford, which was taking 78% in indirect costs and not know what they were spending.
That's theft, isn't it?
It's a good
in Louisiana,
way to spend
we call
federal
that stealing.
Taxpayer dollars.
We call that stealing. Is there any doubt in your mind that a lot of universities are taking this NIH money, which is supposed to be spent on medical research, and using it to fund other parts of their university? Is there any doubt in your mind, Bobby?
Oh, and Senator, the other people who are writing grants, like the Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, they paid 10% to 15% in indirect costs. We were paying 50, 60, 70%.
So, in fact, what you're doing is adding money to medical research.
We will be able to fund many, many studies by eliminating that $9 billion, at least part of that $9 billion cost.
Okay. I want to ask you about LAHEAP. Are you familiar with this GAO report they did on LAHEAP? They found, they audited 7 states. They found 11,000 dead people getting LAHEAP grants. You familiar with that?
No, but that is pretty typical of many of the other programs that we're working with.
They found prisoners getting grants, didn't they? Were they using the grants to heat their jail cell? They found 1,000 federal employees getting the grants with federal salaries that greatly exceeded the income limits. They found some of those folks living in $1 million homes. I got 18 seconds. Why do we allow highly processed foods in America?
That's a complicated question, but it's driven by profits, but to a food industry that is making money by poisoning American kids, and they don't do it abroad. They make the same products for Canada and for Europe that do not contain many of those chemicals.
You understand, Mr. Secretary, there's nothing you can do that's going to make many of my Democratic colleagues happy. You get that, don't you?
I do understand. I'm coming to understand that, Senator.
Yes. Thank you.
Senator John Kennedy is known for asking the questions others tiptoe around, and this hearing was no different. Right off the bat, Kennedy drills into the downsizing of HHS from 82,000 employees down to 62,000. The secretary tries to spin it as normal business, like what Microsoft or Meta are doing. But Kennedy's point is deeper. If private companies can adapt and cut costs without collapsing, why can't the government? Then the conversation turns to something much more serious: medical research funding. Kennedy asks a pointed question. If NIH gives a university $100 million for cancer research and the school diverts $30 million to unrelated costs, isn't that just theft? The secretary hesitates, but Kennedy doesn't. He cites Stanford taking 78% in indirect costs, far above what groups like the Gates or Rockefeller Foundations allow. In plain English, Kennedy is saying, if taxpayer money is meant to find cures, then spending it on campus renovations or overhead is robbing the public. And he's not wrong. $9 billion is a lot of money that could be funding real breakthroughs. Then things get even worse. Kennedy brings up a GAO report about LIHAP, an energy assistance program meant to help low-income households pay their heating bills. The findings? 11,000 dead people receiving benefits. Prisoners getting funds possibly to warm their jail cells. Over 1,000 federal employees making too much money to qualify, but getting the help anyway. Some recipients even live in million-dollar homes. Kennedy is blunt. Why is this allowed to happen? But he's not done yet. He ends with a jab at the processed food industry, accusing them of making billions by poisoning American kids. And the kicker? These companies sell healthier versions of the same food in Canada and Europe because those governments don't tolerate the toxic additives allowed here in the US. What does all of this point to? Kennedy makes it clear a system where powerful institutions from universities to corporations get away with abusing public trust. And every time someone tries to fix it, they're met with resistance, not solutions. Do you think Kennedy's calling it like it is, or do you see it differently? Should there be stricter accountability for how taxpayer money is spent? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what you think. And if you're tired of the spin and ready for real talk, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We cover the moments that matter without the fluff. Because someone needs to ask the hard questions. See you in the next one.